All right, what is going on, people? You know that sound. It is the Unfiltered Band. Means yes, another episode of Unfiltered coming your way right here and right now. We are coming to you live, impromptu as can be, at 3 o'clock Eastern time here on a Thursday. If you are joining us live or wherever you are, belated, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere that you get your podcasts, it is good to have you on board with us as well. As I've got a lot to get into here. I know the tournament is on. Not sure, and thank you, Unfiltered Band, how people will get to this live, if they get it on delay, or how it'll be watched or viewed, and I really don't care. Because to be honest with you, and I've been this way, and anybody who listened to me when I was doing talk radio for almost 20 years, I am somebody who has had a lot of rants in his day, and I got a lot of passion about sports, a lot of passion about life. But I do not, and I will not manufacture heat, manufacture fire, make clicks, and it's probably why I'm sitting here doing a podcast, and you got people with 500,000 and 1 million followers talking about wishing guys get injured and grandmas and all kinds of sorts and bullshit in between, and this may not be a family show today. I say this to you as you jump in on the chat, or what you can do on Twitter and on YouTube, whether you get in belated. We're in an industry and we're in a world where everybody says they want the truth and nobody wants the truth. Because a lot of times when you hear something and you realize that, wait a minute, a snippet or a lot of that is me and I'm doing that, then all of a sudden it can't be reality. But I got news for you. There are a good chance a lot of what I'm about to say, for however long this goes, is you. You, wherever you are watching this or listening to it right now. Before we get started, I say this right now because we are sponsored and we are thankful for our good friends at BetOnline. Remains the number one source for all your college basketball betting this season. Analysis of every play, every prop, and every point, and BetOnline. In the latest odds, bracket contest, team matchups, and game trends at BetOnline, they've got odds for everything from live games, the conference championships, all the way on through the Final Four in the championship game. BetOnline, your college basketball headquarters this season. Head over to the website today, use the mobile device, and sign up and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Be sure to use the promo code BELIEVE, it's BLEAV, to receive your bonus. It's betonline.ag. That's betonline.ag, where the game starts. And we get started here where people should get started, and that's part of this problem. And that is feeling all kinds of shitty for Edwin Diaz. That is feeling bad for Edwin Diaz. That is feeling bad for Edwin Diaz and the injury. That is feeling bad for the fact that he had this happen to him after the excitement that he showed to sign the contract he just signed and be a part of a winner and be a reason for a winner. That is feeling for Edwin Diaz for how important it was to him to represent his country and to get that win, and the emotion, the elation, and to have him and his brother there right by his side. And that moment for him and his friends and teammates and his family have to become what it was yesterday, which is, as I said on this podcast, and it's rare because we talk often about the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. They're usually on opposite sides. Yesterday, it was the agony of defeat immediately following the thrill of victory. And it is hard to find a moment where you get what you got yesterday in a snap of a finger or a jump up and down on a mound in celebration. If your first thought is not feeling for Edwin Diaz, and I tweeted this, but it may in fact be you, wherever you are, and that's to a lot of yous, and I have people write me back and say, why are you so angry at me? I'm not angry at you. Are you being a jackass? Because if you're not thinking about it at least for a second, your first thought is not, man, I feel bad for that kid. You are, in fact, a glorified jackass. That's number one. So start where you should start. And here's where part of the problem and the truth we're going to discuss today that people don't, as they say in my favorite movie, Few Good Men, want to talk about at parties. All right? And I'm going to give it to you real talk. Because this show's not called Filtered. What people don't want to talk about is the fact that, and I love, and there's different reasons for it, fantasy sports in part. And I love fantasy sports. I've worked in it. I covered it. I do it. I'm obsessive with it in multiple sports. But when fantasy sports came in, and it became even more than it was with our own teams, going back 20, 30 years, and it's gradually got worse and worse and worse, and then you add in betting and the ability to do that now naturally without hiding it, worse and worse and worse. and you add how much people think that they are just like you because they can tap in social media and go say a bunch of crap when you blow a save or you strike out instead of hitting a home run, worse and worse and worse and worse. The millennials are the people of today who are unbelievably more sensitive and hoity-toity and high on their horse than ever we have seen. Worse and worse and worse. We forget that athletes are actually humans. They're humans that have all the skill in the world. They're humans that play these sports that we wish we had talent to play, and that we, as broadcasters and fans, because we, as broadcasters, are fans. We all wish we could play. 5 years old, I stood up in my classroom and said I wanted to be Bob Murphy, only because I already knew, looking at my family, there probably wasn't a chance the athletic genes were going to be there. But if you told me I could have been an athlete or Bruce Springsteen, I would have chosen to be an athlete or Bruce Springsteen. But these are not pawns on a chessboard. These are not fantasy players. These are not social media handles. They are humans. They are human beings. Where have we forgotten that? Pretty much in total, most of you, being honest, in some way, many of you all across the board have forgotten that they are athletes in the same exact way we are, except whatever you are talented or do for a living, they happen to do this thing you wish you could do for a living. They happen to be rock stars on a stage and performers, which they are, which you wish you were, and I wish I was. It's why the jealousy comes out of people who say when a guy's 0 for 4 and he's 2 for 31, and then they find out he's in some bad divorce. I don't care you're in a divorce. I'm paying your salary. No, you're not, idiot. You're paying for parking. Now, you're overpriced. You shouldn't pay $40 for it, but go blame that dude who owns the lot. You're paying for your hot dogs and your French fries. You're not paying the guy in left field who might be sitting there trying to find out how to deal with anything from illness to children, parents, siblings, himself, mental issue, whatever, things that every other person goes through, but that person not allowed to go through it because they're an athlete and you don't care about anything else. And if you don't think you're that person, and I hope most of you are not, the chances are that you know someone who is. Chances are you've been that person once. Chances are, if you're a Met fan, and the first thing you thought of yesterday was, damn, the WBC sucks and they ruined my season, you're that dude. You're that gal. You are that person now. Why do I say that? Let's go back. I have seen people say, now look, let me be fair, because in the world of what the reality is we don't live in, and we're not in reality, because we're in a reality where a dude with 1 million followers could sit there and talk about somebody's grandma and make jokes about getting laid when a guy is now down for the season because he wanted to represent his own country. I mean, that deserves space to swallow the idea of the audacity of that bullshit. Again, you want filtered, go somewhere else. I don't got 1 million followers. I got, what, 23,000? Guess what? Maybe I have a lot more than that if I just completely all the time acted like an asshole and said anything I didn't believe just to drive up clicks. But at some point, we got to get in a world in 2023 in this industry that I work in and realize that's not okay. It's the same thing I say to Hall of Fame writers and voters all the time. When there's that ass who votes for a blank ballot and says some nonsense, and we don't sit there and be honest and say, hey, look, okay, I get it's only 75%, but isn't there something you could do to get that dude out? He'd represent you bad. Well, guess what? These people in this industry representing all of us in a bad way. All of us in a negative way. So you don't like reality, you want it filtered, leave. You want it unfiltered, go tweet your friends right now because we live. But that same athlete you don't care about enough, that same athlete that you don't really give a shit if he's got problems at home or what his desires are to represent his country or why, because of how he serves you for your season tickets or your fantasy team, that guy you don't care about, just like you, has his own desires. And when we hear and we see, and I'm not over-exaggerating, because I hear and I see, and this is not just Keith Olbermann, and this is not just a couple of other guys who are content creators of way more followers than me. This isn't just that. It's a lot of people. Go look on the internet. I'm not making this up. I've seen it myself in the last way less than 24 hours. I can do the math now. I've seen it myself. You got people peppering about WBC, and these are now you got fans. The same fans on the CBA was going on and said, I don't care about those owners, those rich bastards. I don't care about them. I don't care about these players, these greedy bastards. I don't care about them. Get on the damn field. Do you know how many people I was on Sirius XM every day in the afternoon drive during all of that? Do you know how many people said that? And that's not terrestrial radio. No offense, terrestrial radio. It's kind of upgraded in terms of the lack of insanity. But 90% of the freaking people that were calling me, and Ryan Spielborg's at the time, hey, Spilly, we're saying that owners are greedy, players are greedy, get the hell on the field, we need you, right? Right? But now, when a guy gets hurt and you can't have your little fantasy piece and you can't have Edwin Diaz out there to play his trumpet so you can go tweet some Braves fans some bullshit, when you can't have that, now it's, well, you know, the owner paid for $100 million for an investment for a guy who's going to help him win the World Series, and it is unprofessional and completely just out of whack that a guy would want to do this for some exhibition that's meaningless and nobody cares about. Why? Because you don't care about it? First of all, if you're a baseball fan, which, by the way, the people who were tweeting this bullshit yesterday clearly are not, because if you watched 5 minutes of that game yesterday and you don't think it was entertaining, you're a moron. Now, if this was marketed the right way, you could sell that game and that environment up until what happened afterwards to anyone, literally. To the guy or the gal who you know who hate baseball, you could have sold that too. It's why I watch the moguls and figure skating and root for the U.S. no matter what, because you could have sold that pride and that feeling, that energy, that thing to absolutely any freaking one yesterday if you marketed the damn thing correctly. But the WBC, not perfect. No. They're not played at the right time. Before the season when guys aren't ready, pitchers can't do it, players exerting max effort when they probably shouldn't. There's buy-in to that. Yes, and you're allowed to say that. Yes. Yes, you can say that. That's all right. You can say that, hey, look, if you're a player and you're making that money, and if you or I were in a player, and look, whoever you might be, right? You're making that money, then you are then tied to an obligation to that team, right? So you then have to be there to go make sure you can be there opening day, and you have to do anything that you can. You can't allow freak accidents. You can't allow the Freddie Freeman hamstring. You can allow anything because you got to be there for your team. And if that's how you feel, you can say that. That doesn't make me disgusted. Whether I agree or not, I respect and you can say that. I respect that you could say it should be after the season. I respect that you could say it should be during the season. I certainly respect if you want to say the game times are obnoxious and ridiculous. There is no damn reason that you're sitting there on Sunday night this past weekend, and I got to have a game at 10 o'clock at night to go stay up on a Sunday night to go watch the U.S. is ridiculous. And I can argue with you, the idea of having it that time after the Oscars, who the hell from the Oscars coming off of the cinematography award to go watch the sixth? I mean, there's some bullshit again. So I'm with you. Not everything perfect, not anything perfect. There are issues with the World Baseball Classic. But let me tell you what's not an issue with the World Baseball Classic. It is not meaningless. You see the video about the kids in Great Britain over in the UK wearing a Ford Kings cap and talking about a kid who's a prospect in this sport who is now a legend over there for kids who love baseball, and they're sitting there like, you know, a hockey fan as I was as a kid, trying to explain to everybody why you got to watch it. And, you know, I'm sitting there and my friends are like, I love hoops. I love baseball. But Casey, you're an idiot. Like, what is it? You got to drag them to it live. Those whole lives change for this sport. They'll be playing on a field somewhere. Now, that may mean nothing to you, and that I also am okay with. Because get ready. It's 14 minutes in. I want you to go tell me what I'm saying. Go back and listen again and again. That's irrational. I'm not screaming at people and everyone. I'm not granting to everybody that everyone is wrong, and I'm not saying everything is right either, because this is reality, and this doesn't get clicks. This won't get 1 million views because guess what? 1 million people don't want the truth, and 1 million people don't want it unfiltered. They want the bullshit. Because nothing's perfect. But you can't go overboard and sit there like the Seinfeld episode when he's in the Chinese restaurant, he's acting like he's waiting there 2 weeks. And you can't sit there and be me who went, Domino's before DoorDash or whatever pizza I was ordering. When I'd sit there and say, oh, man, I've been waiting for an hour, and you're sitting there 19, you're hungry, you're starving, you got the munchies in your 20s, they weren't able to say, dude, sorry, it's actually been 21 minutes and 14 seconds. You can over-exaggerate. I'm a Jew from Long Island. I know all about that. Shout out to my Jewish mother. But I know all about that. You can over-exaggerate. But don't tell me it's meaningless. You can say it's meaningless to you. Go tell me it's meaningless to the players, to the Gene Segura who is just in a World Series. Just in a World Series. And telling you this, more important for me than that. More meaningful for me than that. And you can't not agree with it. That's his feeling. That's his right. Oh, well, he's an idiot. Why? He didn't tell you 4 + 4 is 11. He told you something in his life was more important to him than it would be to you. That makes him wrong? No. That makes you not understanding the difference between an athlete and a human being. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, because that's the truth. Oh, you're sitting there with your millions of followers and spouting all this bullshit. That's the truth. Get a life. Get a grip. Grow up. Because the reality is that those people who are spending their winning those uniforms, those other countries, and we'll get to that, that's where the problem is. High. But those people representing all of those other places and the players representing the U.S., yeah, oh, well, Mike Trout said yesterday, Mike Trout, this is what I love about people. And a lot of you, like, we got the hide in the mom's basement business. Let me tell you something. I've had players yell at me for shit I've said in the past, but at least I was man enough to say I said it. You know how many people sit there and one of my favorites is watching Living in New York, how people would love up on, and literally, I mean, let's go back to the suck at the teat of Mike Piazza. Every single day, that dude on that team. And the second day, we're like, we think he did PEDs. Boom. The other way. Now he's in a scrum. Back talking about 9/20/101. Boom. We're back at the teat again. Welcome to our industry. It is undressed for you right here. Go share the tweet with your friends, because this is real life. This is truth. This is Unfiltered. By the way, get in and get the YouTube channel and subscribe. Cheap Pop. Up on my Twitter. You can't say it's meaningless. You can't tell those kids and those players that are representing those countries that it's meaningless. You can't tell me when you make a joke about grandmothers and where they get laid, when you go listen to what it meant to Taiwan Walker and to his mother that he was playing for Mexico. As just an example. You got no right. The late Pedro Gomez and his kid pitching in that moment and what that is, and these moments of what they are. No, it's not the World Series. That's okay to say. Should be at a different time of the year. Okay to say. You following me yet? You're worried guys will get hurt. That's okay to say. But to sit there, because Edwin Diaz had a freak injury, and that's what it is, a freak accident that could have happened anywhere. Oh, well, he wouldn't have been celebrating. Well, guess what? You know what? Mike Trout didn't get hurt yesterday playing. Then you would have said, well, celebrating, who cares about that? But I'm worried about Lindor rounding the bases at max effort. And guess what? That's okay to be worried about that as a fan. But remember who you are. You're not them. You can't tell them it doesn't matter to play for their countries. You can't tell them it doesn't mean shit because it doesn't mean anything to you. No one cares what it means to you. They're not playing for you. A lot of them are playing for their ancestors. A lot of them passed away. They ain't playing for you. So you got a mouthpiece because you got a Twitter handle? Great. I hope you TikTok it. Does that make you feel good when you're sucking your thumb in your mom's basement? Grow up. Grow up. Man, I'm pissed off. You know why? Because I grew up believing that this industry and what we do, there's such a powerful thing. Listening to the voices of Vin Scully, Bob Murphy, what they meant in my life growing up, And to see who the voices are now and to see where, and this is not everybody clearly, but where some of the people who have such great leeway, the Skip Baylesses of the world. I mean, look, we can name them all. We all know who they are. I'm you sit here trying to tell you I'm not going to name them. We all know who they are, right? And it's like, how are you good for sports? You're not. You want to argue if the WBC is good for sports? I got a real argument for you. Argue if those people are good for sports, because they're not. They're not. We're not talking about what we should be, which is how do we make the WBC better? Can we put it at a different time of year? How do we utilize how amazing that atmosphere was in Miami? How do we utilize that Shohei Ohtani, you're sitting there and watching on Twitter, following or watching live, beating out a bunt, throwing a ball 102 miles an hour? That's the hardest pitch he's ever thrown, all right, that we've ever clocked. You don't think he cares? You don't think they want to win? Oh, well, going back to Mike Trout. Mike Trout said what he said about how important it is. And you know what every tweet was? Go look. You think I'm making this up? Because you're going to have some morons who are going to watch this and say, it's anger, like it's misdirected. Somebody tweeted me. I'm not even going to look. I don't care. I don't give a shit. Because I'm sorry, someone needs to say it's what's real. That is, Mike Trout is out there, and he's telling you at that presser with Mookie Betts what it means to them. And 90% of the idiots who replied, you know what they replied? Go read them. Mike Trout never get in the World Series. Well, of course, Mike Trout can't make the playoffs. Well, yeah, not a shock because Mike Trout never gets to see October. Now you're getting on Mike Trout. He's the best player in the sport you say you love, the sport you say you cover because you can't get enough. One of the best players that's ever lived in the sport you can't get enough of, that you love and respect and honor, and now you're going to get on him just to make your point instead of getting on the bandwagon of how about being empathetic towards Edwin Diaz? How about that? Well, that don't get you clicks. Nobody going to follow you for that. Nobody running to give me a job for that. Sorry. That's the truth. So you got nearly 24 hours of the WBC should be canceled. Again, not perfect. But why? Because Edwin Diaz had a freak accident. That's what happened. Now, by the way, these things happen. Remember Kendrys Morales? Well, you weren't a fan of Kendrys Morales, though. You're a Met fan. You're a fan of Edwin Diaz. That's not okay. I said yesterday I was at the game on Monday Night Football when Gramatica had it celebrating after a field goal where he beat my football team, and I think he was out for a year. But you didn't root for him. Didn't matter. You got all the injuries. You know how many shows I've done over the years about crazy injuries from Glen Allen Hill, was it, right, with the spiders? Was it Smoltz or Glavin ironing themselves with a shirt on? Yeah, you guys with sneezing. I remember covering Kaz Matsui had an anal fissure. You got all kinds of weird stuff. Back spasms. Didn't Sosa have that, right? After sneezing, you had all kinds of stuff. Clint Barnes was carrying venison, I think, around up the steps. You got all kinds of stuff, but it wasn't the WBC, and you didn't root for them. You root for Edwin Diaz. And it's New York, and we need Edwin Diaz. I need Edwin Diaz. How about what Edwin Diaz needed, which was to go do that for his country? He did it. He strikes out the side, and then as this crappy thing happened to him, how about that? These athletes are not puzzle pieces. They are humans. They're allowed to have pride just because you don't in your own country in this sport and in this event, and that's okay. Now, you can be a proud American and not care about the WBC. I'm not saying that, but we are saying that clearly and understandably and part of it fairly, U.S. fans who grow up with U.S. teams are not going to be as into what it means for those guys to gather on those other teams, and that is okay to say. And if you say it doesn't mean that much to me because of that reason, and I wish guys wouldn't go and get hurt because of that reason, that's all right. You don't have to agree with me or anyone else. It's when you say it's meaningless, talk about grandma getting laid and some bullshit in between, that's not okay. They're allowed to have pride, and trust me, it's meaningful for them. Who in the hell are you? They're allowed people. They are not pawns. The Edwin Diaz injury, and look, you know, I'll do another podcast at some point and get into the fallout for the Mets. We all know how important he is, right? I'll get into the fallout for that team and quite possibly the most, irreplaceable player. But this isn't about that. It's about time that somebody finally says it. And look, I'm no athlete. I'm not going to tell you that, right? I'm no athlete. But nobody defends. If these athletes defend each other, then it's BS because it's an athlete yapping. They're supposed to keep their mouths shut, stick to sports, shut up and dribble. Go show me you can hit the ball the other way. Go catch it in the outfield, run it down to the track. But it's time somebody else stepped up and said, who the hell do you people think you are, whether you're a fan up to a dude with 1 million followers, telling me this guy doesn't care when he just was sitting there putting everything out there on the line for his country, and so are all these dudes. It may not matter to you. It may be meaningless to you, but it meant something to him. And I got news for you. I will bet you right now, your 1 million followers, I'll bet you your 1 million followers. I'll bet you the 500K. Saw someone with 320K. Saw someone with 170K. These are specific. I'll bet you all. You go trade them all to me, put them in dollars. I'll give you whatever you want. You want an arm, a leg, blood, anything but my kids or the dog, you can have it. Edwin Diaz will play again and do this again in 4 years. He will do it again. He will ask the Mets and beg to be able to do it again. Now, look, they could say after what happened, hey, we don't want you to do that, and he may oblige. But he'll want to. He will want to. You know why? Because it's not meaningless to represent your country. That's why. Because it means something to be united about something instead of hating everyone else like we all freaking do in 2023. That's why. This is a way bigger problem than the WBC or Edwin Diaz or patriotism about the U.S. versus other countries. It's the problem in the U.S. That everybody looking to the left and the right, and they got to have a problem and pulling up some bullshit to put everybody else down. Blow out somebody's candle to light their own. I'm sorry Edwin Diaz can't pitch this season for you. But who the hell are you to have a problem with him wanting to pitch for his country? Unfiltered, as always, is presented by our good friends at BetOnline.